Right after sex, a lot of women think the next move is to talk, connect, ask the sweet question, or pull him even closer. But with an avoidant man, that exact moment can change everything, because while his body feels bonded, his mind can start looking for the exit. And if you do what feels natural, you may trigger the distance you were trying to stop. But there is one simple thing that makes him stay emotionally present longer, and it is not a trick, not a test, and not some perfect line. It is quieter than that, more powerful than that. And if you understand it, you stop chasing connection and start creating the kind of emotional space where he opens on his own. Stay with me, because what happens in the minutes after intimacy can build real closeness or quietly push him away. And most people do not even realize they are choosing one or the other. If you have ever felt him go cold right after being close, this will explain why. And more important, it will show you what to do instead without begging, without overthinking, and without losing yourself in the process. The first thing to understand is that the minutes after intimacy are not neutral. They are highly charged. For a man with avoidant patterns, that moment can feel deeply comforting and deeply threatening at the same time. His body may feel warm, attached, and open, but his inner defenses can begin rising almost right away. That is the paradox. He may feel closer to you than he did 10 minutes ago, and also more exposed than he wants to feel. This is why some men suddenly get quiet, turn away, make a joke, reach for their phone, or act like the mood has changed for no clear reason. It does not always mean the connection was fake. It often means the closeness was real enough to wake up his fear. In that moment, his nervous system is asking one question only. Is this closeness safe, or is it about to cost me my freedom, my control, my peace, my space? And the answer he feels in his body matters more than anything you say. That is why many women accidentally lose the moment by trying too hard to secure it. They ask what he is thinking. They look for reassurance. They try to make the emotional moment bigger with words. It makes sense. It feels natural. But to him, it can feel like pressure arriving right on the heels of vulnerability. Keep listening, because this is where everything starts to shift. What works best in that window is simple, but it is not always easy. Calm, warm, non-judgmental presence. That is the move. Not more words, not emotional analysis, not reaching for some deep conversation while he is still trying to settle inside himself. Just peaceful presence that asks for nothing in that exact moment. When you can be there without demanding a performance, something important happens. His body starts to register that closeness with you does not automatically come with pressure. It does not come with a quiz. It does not come with an emotional deadline. It does not come with an invisible contract he now has to fulfill, and that alone can soften him more than any clever sentence ever could. The truth is, avoidant men often expect intimacy to be followed by expectation. They expect the air to suddenly fill with needs, meanings, demands, or subtle emotional pressure. So when that does not happen, when you are simply there, grounded and soft and emotionally steady, you become different from what his defenses were preparing for. That difference matters. A lot. Because safety is not created by saying the perfect thing. It is created by removing what feels dangerous. And in that moment, what feels dangerous is often being pushed to explain feelings he has not even had time to sort out yet. This is where many women get impatient. Do not miss this. Silence is not always distance. Sometimes silence is the bridge. And here is the deeper part. What feels safe to him in that moment may not feel safe to you at all. If your heart wants reassurance after intimacy, if silence makes you wonder whether something is wrong, then calm presence can feel almost impossible to offer. You may lie there and smile on the outside while your mind starts racing on the inside. Does he regret it? Is he pulling away? Did I do something wrong? Why is he so quiet? Should I say something? Should I ask? Should I fix the energy before it gets worse? That inner panic is understandable, but if you let that panic drive your next move, you may create the exact pressure that makes him shut down further. So, part of doing this well is not only understanding him, it is understanding yourself. It is noticing what intimacy wakes up inside you, your need to be chosen, your need to feel secure, your fear of emotional drop after closeness, your urge to get certainty before uncertainty grows teeth. Because if you are unaware of your own pattern, you will keep reaching for reassurance in ways that feel loving to you but suffocating to him. And then both people leave the moment feeling misunderstood. This is why emotional intelligence matters here. not fake calm, real awareness, real regulation, real choice. You do not need to become cold. You do not need to silence your needs forever. You just need to stop making that exact post-intimacy window carry the full weight of your anxiety. Because when you can stay steady there, you give the connection room to breathe. This is not just about saying less. It is about what your body is communicating. Your energy speaks before your words ever do. If you are tense, he feels it. If you are silently waiting for him to prove something, he feels it. If your touch says, "Do not leave me," even while your mouth says nothing, he feels that too. So the practice is not only silence, it is relaxed silence, soft breathing, unclenched muscles, gentle contact that comforts but does not grip. Maybe your hand rests lightly on him. Maybe you stay close without wrapping yourself around him like you are trying to hold the moment in place. Maybe you simply lie beside him with an energy that says, "I am here, I am calm, and nothing is being demanded from you right now." That kind of presence can regulate more than you realize. Human nervous systems read each other constantly, especially in vulnerable moments. He may not consciously think, "She feels peaceful, so I can stay open," but his body can still absorb it. And when his body senses no threat, no push, no hidden demand, his urge to retreat may lower enough for real connection to remain. That is the shift, not control, not strategy, safety. If this is making sense, stay with me. Because the next part is where many women unintentionally ruin the progress by trying to help the moment along instead of letting it unfold on its own timing. One of the most powerful things you can do is resist the urge to fill the silence. That urge is strong. It can almost feel physical. You want to smooth the moment over with words. You want to make sure everything is okay. You want to pull closeness into language so it feels more secure. But with an avoidant man, letting the silence breathe can be exactly what allows him to lean back in on his own. And that matters because intimacy feels much safer when it feels chosen rather than pulled out of him. If he sighs, if he makes a small joke, if he says one simple thing, let that be enough at first. Do not grab the thread and turn it into a full emotional interview. Do not pounce on the opening because you are excited he is finally sharing. Let it stay light. Let it stay easy. The point is not to get as much emotion from him as possible in one night. The point is to create an experience where openness feels safe enough that he will want to return to it again. That takes patience. And yes, sometimes that means being quiet longer than is comfortable. But space is not the same as rejection. In fact, for some men, space is what keeps closeness from turning into panic. And when you give space with warmth instead of distance, he feels something rare. He feels free without feeling abandoned. He feels close without feeling cornered. And that combination can slowly change everything. Most people miss this because they think connection must always sound like something. Sometimes the strongest connection sounds like almost nothing at all. That said, space has to feel inviting, not cold. There is a difference between giving him room and acting checked out. If your energy becomes icy, offended, or passive-aggressive, then silence stops feeling safe and starts feeling punishing. He may then read the moment as proof that closeness always ends in emotional confusion anyway. So the balance matters. Stay open. Stay warm. Do not punish him for being slow to process. But also do not overfunction for the whole connection while he gives nothing back. Healthy space says, "I am here with you and there is no rush." Unhealthy space says, "Fine, do whatever you want, I am done." He can feel the difference, even if he never names it. This is why subtle cues matter so much. A relaxed expression, gentle eye contact if it happens naturally, a soft touch that comes and goes easily, a tone that stays light if either of you does speak. These small cues tell him that closeness is still available, but it is not being forced down his throat. That kind of atmosphere lowers resistance. And when resistance lowers, voluntary intimacy becomes more possible. This is the whole secret in a sentence. Autonomy helps him choose closeness. Pressure makes him defend against it. Remember that? Because it will save you from so much overthinking. You do not need to convince him to open in that moment. You need to stop making openness feel risky. And once you understand that, your entire approach becomes calmer, cleaner, and far more effective than chasing words ever was. Now let's talk about what happens when he does share, even a little. This part is huge. because the way you respond to a small opening can either encourage more of it over time or shut the door right back down. If he says something honest, even something simple, do not interrogate it, do not make it bigger than it is, do not flood the moment with excitement, analysis, or 10 follow-up questions. Meet it with warmth, meet it with ease, a soft smile, a quiet thank you, a simple "I like hearing that," a gentle squeeze of the hand. That is enough, more than enough actually. Men with avoidant habits often fear judgment and emotional overwhelm. They worry that once they open a little, they will be pulled into more than they are ready for. So when your response is calm and accepting rather than intense and hungry, his nervous system learns something new. It learns that sharing does not automatically lead to pressure. It learns that honesty with you can stay safe, simple, and steady. That is how trust grows, not from dramatic moments, but from repeated experiences of being received without being overwhelmed. Think of it like encouraging something shy to come closer. If every little movement toward you is met with huge energy, it may pull back. But if closeness is met with warmth and peace, it begins to feel possible. This is where long-term change begins. Tiny moments, tiny openings, tiny responses that say, "You are safe here, and you do not have to become someone else for me to stay." At the same time, you need to be honest with yourself about one thing. Patience is powerful, but it is not magic. Calm presence can help a man feel safer. It can support growth. It can create better emotional experiences between you, but it cannot do all the work for him. And it cannot turn chronic emotional unavailability into real partnership if he has no interest in growing. That distinction matters more than many people want to admit. Because sometimes women become so focused on learning how to love an avoidant man correctly that they stop asking whether the relationship is actually meeting their needs at all. If every moment of closeness is followed by confusion, distance, mixed signals, or emotional starvation, then the issue may not be your technique. The issue may be the pattern itself. So yes, use these moments wisely. Yes, create safety where you can, but keep your eyes open. Is he becoming more open over time? Does he take steps toward you too? Does he reflect, communicate, repair, and make effort? Or are you carrying the entire emotional weight while calling it understanding? That is a hard question, but an important one. Because real love should not require you to shrink your needs forever just to avoid scaring someone away. If your softness is creating space for genuine growth, beautiful. If your softness is only making it easier for him to stay comfortable while you stay confused, then something deeper needs to be faced. And if you have ever wondered where that line is, keep watching, because this may be the part you need most. A good sign is when his openness slowly becomes more natural with time. Not perfect, not sudden, but clearer. He stays present a little longer. He shares a little more without being pushed. He returns after needing space instead of disappearing emotionally for days. He starts to show that closeness does not only happen on his terms. He begins to consider your nervous system too, not just his own. That is growth. It may be slow, but it is real. A harder sign is when nothing changes no matter how safe, steady, and patient you are. He still withdraws the same way. He still avoids all emotional responsibility. He still makes intimacy feel one-sided. He still benefits from your understanding while offering almost no real vulnerability in return. In that case, what you are dealing with may be less about fear and more about refusal. And those are not the same thing. Fear can work with love. Refusal usually cannot. This is why your own standards matter. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-abandonment very quickly. You are allowed to understand him and still expect more. You are allowed to create space and still need consistency. You are allowed to be gentle and still be honest about what hurts. In fact, that honesty protects your heart, because the goal is not to become so skilled at handling distance that you forget what mutual closeness should feel like. The goal is to create a relationship where both people can exhale, not one where you become an expert in surviving emotional crumbs. Let that land for a second. It matters. So what does this look like in real life? In the actual minutes after sex, it can be very simple. You do not rush into talking. You breathe. You stay soft. You let the room settle. If you touch him, it is light, not gripping. If he is quiet, you do not instantly label it as rejection. You let there be some stillness. If he says something small, you receive it warmly and do not turn it into a bigger conversation unless he clearly wants that. If he needs a little room, you do not collapse into panic or punish him with coldness. You hold a quiet emotional steadiness that says, closeness is here and it is safe. That is the essence of it. And honestly, it can feel almost too simple, which is why people overlook it. They think the answer must be more advanced, more verbal, more strategic. But often the deepest shift comes from less doing and more grounded being. You stop trying to force the moment into meaning and start allowing the moment to breathe. And in that breathing room, he gets the chance to feel what closeness is like when it is not tied to pressure. That memory can stay with him. More than a speech, more than a question, more than a perfect post-intimacy line. This is the kind of change that happens under the surface first, quietly, slowly. But if you keep creating those safe moments, they can build a completely different emotional pattern between you. And yes, that can become very powerful over time. There is another layer here that many people never talk about. Sometimes the reason silence works so well is because it lets truth show itself. When you stop filling every gap with words, you begin to see what is actually there. You see whether he naturally moves towards you when there is no pressure. You see whether he reaches back in small ways when given room. You see whether closeness awakens care in him or only retreat. That is valuable information. In other words, calm presence does not just help the bond. It also reveals the bond. It shows you what happens when you are not managing everything. And that can be uncomfortable because sometimes what gets revealed is not what you hoped for. But clarity is a gift even when it stings. Because once you can see the real pattern, you can stop blaming yourself for not saying the right thing at the right time. You can stop carrying all the responsibility for whether intimacy works. You can stop believing that if you were just softer, calmer, sexier, wiser, or more patient, everything would finally click. Relationships do not thrive because one person becomes perfectly adaptive. They thrive because both people slowly become safer with each other. So yes, give the moment peace. Yes, learn how not to trigger unnecessary pressure, but also pay attention to what he does with the peace you give. That part matters just as much. And if this is hitting home, stay with me for this final piece, because it might be the one that changes how you handle these moments from now on. The real power in all of this is not that it makes him open up on command. It is that it changes the emotional climate. It changes what being close to you feels like. Instead of intensity, he feels steadiness. Instead of demand, he feels room. Instead of emotional noise, he feels quiet acceptance. And for a man who is used to defending himself against closeness, that can feel almost shocking in the best way. It can make him curious. It can make him stay. It can make him share more than he planned to, not because he was pushed, but because something in him finally relaxed. That is the one thing, not a sentence, not a formula. Peaceful, grounded presence after intimacy. That is what disarms the defenses. That is what tells his nervous system that vulnerability does not have to end in pressure. And that is what gives connection a chance to deepen naturally instead of being forced. But let me leave you with this. Offer that presence because it is healthy, not because you're trying to earn love. Offer it from strength, not from fear. Offer it while still honoring your own needs, your own body, your own heart, because the healthiest version of this is not you becoming endlessly patient for someone unavailable. It is you becoming deeply grounded, deeply clear, and deeply unwilling to confuse tension with intimacy ever again. If you can do that, you will not only change the energy after sex, you will change the kind of relationships you accept, the kind of closeness you create, and the kind of love you stop settling for.